in the toolbar. The chair will then call on participants. If you are on the phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. Welcome, everyone. My name is David Moeller. I represent Secretary Monica Tibbetts-Nutt here. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Do we have MassDOT seat 2?
Good morning, Ligis Lyoto, MassDOT Highway Division, representing John Bouchard today.
Good morning, Laris. Welcome. MassDOT Highway Division, please.
John Romano, MassDOT Highway Division is here.
Hello, John. MBTA, calling on the MBTA.
Good morning, Sandy Johnson, representing General Manager Phil Lang in the MBTA.
Good morning, Sammy. Next, we have the Regional Transportation Authority's Metro West Transit Authority.
Morning, Tyler Tarasi, representing Administrator Jim Nee for the Metro West Regional Transit Authority. Present.
Hello, Tyler. Massport.
Hi, good morning. This is Sarah Lee representing Massport.
Hi, good morning, Sarah. MAPC.
Good morning, Eric Barras with MAPC.
Morning, Eric. Next, we have MBTA Advisory Board. After that, Advisory Council.
Leonard Diggins, Advisory Council, here on this nice snowy day.
Welcome, Len. City of Boston, seat 1.
Jen Rowe, representing Mayor Michelle Wu in the City of Boston.
Hello, Jen. City of Boston, seat 2.
Nayeli Rodriguez, also representing Mayor Michelle Wu in the City of Boston.
Welcome, Nayeli. At-large City of Everett.
Good morning. This is Eric Molinari, representing Mayor Carlo DiMaria in the City of Everett.
Morning, Eric. At-large City of Newton, please.
Good morning, David Kosas, representing Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller in the City of Newton.
Hello, David. At-large Town of Arlington. Town of Arlington. Next is at-large Town of Brookline.
Good morning, Erin Chute, representing Bernard Green, Chair of the Brookline Select Board.
Wonderful. Good morning, Erin. Intercore Committee, City of Somerville.
Good morning, Tom Bent, City of Somerville, representing Mayor Katiana Ballantyne in the Intercore Committee.
Morning, Tom. Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, Town of Acton.
Good morning, Kristen Guichard, representing Acton Select Board member Fran Arsenal for the Magic Subregion.
Good morning. Metro West Regional Collaborative, City of Framingham.
Dennis Giambetti, representing Metro West, and Mayor Charles Szyczki.
Good morning as well. North Shore Task Force, City of Beverly. Do we then have North Suburban Planning Council, Town of Burlington? Calling on South Shore Coalition, Town of Hull. Southwest Advisory Planning Committee, Town of Rentham. Three Rivers Interlocal Council, Town of Norwood.
Hi, good morning. Tom O'Rourke from the Town of Norwood, representing the Trek subregion.
Morning, Tom. Just kind of going back, is there anyone on roll call that I've not yet called upon?
I think Darlene went North Shore Task Force. I think I just missed you when I popped on.
Welcome, Darlene. Thank you. Anyone else?
Hey, Dave, it's Hannah. You might have gotten Isabella with the MBTA Advisory Board, but I'm also here.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. And welcome. Noting this down. And then is there anyone else who'd like to be acknowledged for this meeting? With that, I pass it back to the chair. Thank you.
So I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I yield back to the chair.
Thanks, David. I was on mute. I forgot I muted myself. The next item on the agenda is the chair's report. I have been asked to speak briefly about the somewhat unsettled nature of transportation funding at the current moment. As everyone knows, the Trump administration has issued several executive orders which impact, among many other things, transportation funding. We are in the process of reviewing all of those executive orders and figuring out their impacts and what that means to all of us. In the meantime, we are all we are proceeding ahead with all of our projects. Nothing has changed. No funding well, I shouldn't say that. Nothing has changed from project delivery. We are moving forward. The MPO's funding is settled for the next 3 months. Because Congress passed a continuing resolution. Everything is moving forward. We don't have a lot to say beyond that, but you know, nothing will happen without us fully informing everyone. Any questions? Eric Barassa.
Hey, David, thank you for that. Can you confirm just the regular invoicing that takes place with Federal Highway, like that's not been interrupted?
I can confirm that Federal Highway invoicing as of the last submission has not been interrupted.
And do you know how frequent is that? Is that like monthly or weekly?
That's, I believe we do it every week, but it might be
Oh,
every,
wow.
it might be every 2 weeks. So, but that's Federal Highway. I can't confirm for other agencies. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Ken, did you want to say something?
No, just that yeah, we get billed weekly for all
Yeah.
the projects, and we're paying current bill, as it's called.
Any other questions? Seeing none, next item on the agenda is the Executive Director's Report. Taken?
Great. Thanks, David, for those introductory remarks. And I will proceed now with the Executive Director's Report. If we can go to the next slide, please. So today I have a relatively short report. We also have a relatively shorter meeting. So that will be something to celebrate on this, as Len said, snowy day where some of us have our kids home from school, and I know things are a little bit disrupted. So thanks for being here today. Next slide, please. First, I'm excited to update you all in terms of staffing changes. So Elena Ion, who has now joined us and has started as the manager of MPO Planning and Policy. She is overseeing our program work in transportation equity, performance-based planning, congestion management process, and climate resilience and air quality. And she also oversees our policy analyst, which is a newer position that we have created in the last few years. So please welcome Elena Ion, and I'd like her just to say a few words, as we often do, to introduce herself and put a name or face to the name. Elena, are you here with us?
I am. Hi, everyone. I'm Elena. I'm the new manager of planning and policy, overseeing several programs, as Tegan mentioned. In a previous role, I was this manager of comprehensive planning at the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Agency, and I'm excited to be working with you.
Welcome.
Welcome, Elena. Thank you for saying hello. And everybody, please reach out and say hello. I'm sure you'll be seeing her for a variety of reasons, but never hesitate to reach out and introduce yourself just to get to know Elena. Thanks, Elena. All right, next slide, please. So I mentioned today's agenda, or today's meeting will be a little bit shorter than some of ours. Next slide, please. We have two main action items that we'll focus on today. The first is a vote to adopt roadway safety performance targets. As a reminder, these are the targets that states and MPOs are required to adopt in the federal transportation legislation, which is currently the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or BIL. And this particular set of targets that we're talking about today, if adopted, will fulfill 1/2 of that annual PM1, which is the safety category target requirements. We'll actually be presenting the other half, which is the transit safety performance targets, at the next MPO meeting on February 20th. And then our second primary activity for today is the action item for TIP Amendment 9 for the 25 to 29 current TIP. And that includes some changes to Cape Ann Transportation Authority programming, as well as putting in some of the Reconnecting Communities grants for the City of Revere, the City of Boston, and the MBTA. And then there's also in this amendment an earmark for the town of Wakefield, and all of which Ethan will summarize when it is his turn on the agenda. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to call out the couple next meeting dates and say a few things about it. Our next meetings will be on February 20th in 2 weeks, and then March 6th. But something to keep in mind at this time of year as we're entering into the TIP readiness and scenario season, which starts in earnest at the next meeting. MPO meetings are going to be longer than they usually are throughout the year, and they can and certainly do often go longer than the 2 hours that we strive to maintain for all of our MPO meetings. And that's just so that we can make sure that we can get our business done, particularly when we have more complex kind of scenarios to sort of explore together. So please, if you can, arrange your schedule accordingly to give some extra time in February, March, and April. And again, just recall, this is a really essential time for this board to help shape how we make these investments through the TIP. And then also please keep in mind that the extension, and excuse my voice, I'm feeling a little under the weather. I feel like I'm not projecting very well. The extension of the open meeting law exceptions, which allow the public bodies right now to meet remotely, that extension will end on March 31st. So I think that we are hoping that the state will take additional action in advance of that date to be certain as to what we are planning for. But in the meantime, we will begin to need planning for start planning for a transition to hybrid and in-person meetings. And if that happens, we will need to ensure that there's quorum in the room in order to be able to hold each meeting. So the maybe the good news is that naturally we're already planning for some in-person meetings towards the end of March and the beginning of April, because that's when we'll be really discussing those TIP scenarios. So please, again, plan for in your schedule if you can, attending in person late March and early April. And with that, Mr. Chair, I can stop, and I'm happy to answer any questions people have.
Thank you, Tegan. Questions for Tegan? Seeing and hearing none. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any at this time? Seeing and hearing none. If you want to comment during the meeting, please raise your hand and we will try to call on you. Next item is committee chairs reports. Are there any? Jane Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would happy to report that we've scheduled the next TIP Process Engagement and Readiness Committee meeting for this coming Thursday, February 13th at 1 p.m. You can expect an agenda posted later today. At the meeting, we will first review updates coming out of MassDOT's TIP readiness days and kind of what they mean for our readiness scenario, which staff also expect to post later today. That initial scenario is going to form the baseline for how we go about programming existing and new projects. The second item is we'll take a look at new project applications. And then finally, we'll consider what that all means for the types of decisions we can expect this spring and begin discussing how to approach them. So it'll be a media agenda. And also just wanted to share a friendly reminder that committee meetings are open to the public and everyone's welcome to attend, even if you're not a member of the committee. MPO staff do a really great job emailing the agendas out in advance. I'll drop in the chat a form you can use to sign up for those meeting reminders and notices and a few other of staff's newsletters. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions for Jen? Seeing none. Chris Clem.
Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. This is Chris Clem from MassDOT's Office of Transportation Planning. I want to let folks know that the Unified Planning Work Program Committee meets this afternoon at 1 o'clock. Those materials and the meeting link are available online at the Boston MPO's calendar. We'll be kicking off the FFY 2026 UPWP development season and taking up an action to amend a number of planning grants awarded to the Boston MPO and its communities to the FFY 2025 UPWP for informational purposes. And this is my time chairing that committee, so looking forward to meeting everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Seeing none. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 5th. Can I get a motion in a second to approve the minutes, and please state your name for the record when making the motion? Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 5th meeting.
Rowe.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any comments, changes, questions, or suggestions? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Thank you. David Muller,
Yes.
Luis Liato,
I abstained since I wasn't there. Thank you.
abstain, noted. Thank you.
Abstain. Thank you.
Thank you. John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Tyler Terasi,
Tyler Terasi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Hannah Swilikowski, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Nayeli Rodriguez,
No.
acknowledge that as, I just do a head nod as the yes, not abstain. Okay, I'll follow up by chat. Eric Molinari,
Eric Molinari, yes.
David Kozis,
David Kozis, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Aaron Shute, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Bent, yes.
Kristen Guichard,
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen,
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Melissa Tentopoulos, on meeting minutes, once again, Melissa Tentopoulos, and calling Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Thank you. That motion carries. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, David. Next item on the agenda is the roadway safety performance targets. Sam Taylor, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, everyone. My name is Sam Taylor. I am the Program Manager of Performance-Based Planning and Programming. And I'm here to present to you today the MPO's 2025 roadway safety performance targets in accordance with the U.S. Department of Transportation's PM1 rules. Next slide, please. Just a brief overview of what we will cover in this agenda item. Since it's been a while since you have heard from this program, I will quickly describe how the target setting process fits into the broader picture of performance-based planning activities. Then we will get into the performance measures themselves, along with the proposed targets for this year. We will then have a brief update on Vision Zero action planning and our efforts to meet these targets and improve safety on the roads for all users. We'll conclude by asking the board to vote on the adoption of the calendar year 2025 roadway safety performance targets. Next slide, please. So many of you have seen this slide in a similar form in the past. This is a reminder that we set roadway safety targets annually. There are two other performance areas in which we set targets annually, and those are transit safety and transit asset condition. And then there are a few other performance areas that we're not required to touch this year, and those include bridge and pavement condition, travel time reliability, and congestion mitigation and air quality. Next slide, please. So the basic performance target setting process is as follows. The US DOT establishes performance measures as part of its transportation performance management efforts. State DOTs set statewide targets for each of these measures with an annual deadline each August. And then within 180 days, MPOs choose to either support the statewide targets or set separate targets for the MPO region. Next slide, please. And in line with the final point from the last slide about target setting, MPO staff requests that following this presentation, the MPO board vote to support MassDOT's calendar year 2025 roadway safety performance targets. Next slide, please. So state DOTs and MPOs are required to adopt performance targets on 5 measures. Those are the number of fatalities, the rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, the number of serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries per 100 million VMT, and the combined number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. This is a measure used specifically for people walking, biking, and rolling. And for all 5 of these measures, the desired direction is a decrease. Next slide, please. The state has adopted targets for the 5-year periods of 2021 to 2025, as well as more medium-term targets for 2023 to 2027. For all 5 measures, the long-term target is 0. And also for each of the numbers that you see here, these targets are in 5-year spans or rolling 5-year averages. So these are not 5-year totals, these are 5-year averages. So the state has set a target of an average of 365 fatalities per year between 2021 and 2025, or what I'll refer to as the first period, and a target of 315 fatalities per year from 2023 to 2027, or what I'll call the second period. The fatality rate target is 0.58 fatalities per 100 million VMT for the first period and 0.48 for the second period. The target number of serious injuries is 2,622 for the first period and 2,258 for the second period. The serious injury target rate is 4.17 per 100 million VMT for the first period and 3.48 for the second period. And the target for the number of non-motorized fatalities and non-motorized serious injuries is 497 for the first period and 445 for the second. Next slide, please. So the next 5 slides, including this one, show safety targets in more detail on each of the 5 performance areas on which we are asking the board to adopt targets. Again, as stated before, these metrics are all rolling 5-year averages. So at the time of state target setting, the estimated average for the period that just ended, which is 2020 to 2024, was 371 fatalities per year. And so 365, the new target for 2021 to 2025 of 365 is a reduction from the previous 5-year period. As such, the targets for fatalities aim for more modest improvement for 2021 to 25 and significant improvement for 2023 to 2027. The individual years of 2021 and 2022 were particularly poor years for fatalities for the state and the region. And so once those years are not included anymore in the 5-year averages, we expect there to be more significant improvement in this measure. Next slide, please. Here is the fatality rate. So the fatality rate largely corresponds to the number of fatalities. And so again, the 2021 to 25 target aims for a more modest decrease from 0.61 fatalities per 100 million VMT to 0.58. Because the denominator of the fatality rate is the number of miles driven, driving levels have a huge impact on this rate. The fatality rate had been improving over time until the pandemic, and then the decreases in driving in 2020 and 2021 from pre-pandemic levels, along with 2021 being a particularly bad year for fatalities, reversed this trend a little bit for the state and the region. And again, once 2021 and 2022 are off the books for 5-year averages, we expect to see more significant decreases in the fatality rate, which is why that target for 23 to 27 is 0.48. Next slide, please. Similar to fatalities, serious injuries statewide and in the region had been trending downward before the pandemic. Like with fatalities, estimates made in the summer of 2024 show a decrease in statewide serious injuries between the periods of 2019 to 23 and 2020 to 24. So the serious injury target for 2021 to 2025 accounts for a 3% reduction in serious injuries, and the 2023 to 27 target is significantly lower there at 2,258. Next slide, please. Similarly, serious injury rates had been decreasing until the pandemic. For rolling 5-year averages, there was an uptick statewide and in the region for three consecutive periods. But given estimated reductions in the serious injury rate from 4.55 fatalities per 100 million VMT between 2019 and 23, down to 4.4 in 2020 to 2024, the state has adopted a target of 4.17 for 2021 through 25 and 3.48 for 2023 through 27. Next slide, please. This slide for non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries involves occurrences for people walking, biking, and rolling. The target for this category follows a somewhat different trajectory than the previous measures. Outcomes had been improving statewide and in the region until the pandemic. However, in 2021, non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries began increasing again. And even though there is a projected decrease in non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries for 2020 to 24 as compared to the previous period, it would be very difficult to realize a lower target than was set last year for 2021 to 25, given how poorly statewide performance was in the years 21, 22, and 23. Therefore, the target for 2021 to 25 is an annual average of 497 fatalities plus serious injuries, and the target for 2023 to 27 aims for more significant improvement for a reduction down to 445 per year. Next slide, please. So just to summarize some key trends and takeaways, MassDOT adopted roadway safety targets for calendar year 2025 that aim for fairly modest decreases, taking into account some lingering trends from the pandemic. The proposed 2021 to 2025 targets for 4 of 5 measures aim for fewer negative outcomes than the 2020 to 2024 targets. Increases in non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries between 2021 and 2023 make it somewhat difficult to establish a lower target for this measure for the period of 2021 to 25. All targets get more aggressive by 2023 to 2027 based on projections of fewer fatalities and serious injuries. And over the past few years, the Boston region has largely followed the same trajectories as those of the Commonwealth. Next slide, please. So there are several opportunities available to the MPO to improve roadway safety outcomes. The Commonwealth continues to implement components of its most recent Strategic Highway Safety Plan. Guided by the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, the Commonwealth completed a vulnerable road user safety assessment last year. Planning for the, and perhaps most importantly to this, planning for the MPO's Vision Zero Action Plan is underway. And work on municipal level Vision Zero action plans have begun in 11 municipalities who have received Safe Streets and Roads for All funding in the region. And I should also note that several more cities and towns have applied for future SS4A funding. Next slide, please. So just a bit more on Vision Zero action planning. In 2023, the MPO received grant funding from USDOT to create a regional safety action plan. This plan will adopt the Safe Systems approach, the 5-part plan, including components of safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and quicker post-crash care. The plan will work towards the MPO's stated long-range goal of 0, which commits to 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries. Next slide, please. So currently we are somewhere in the middle of this Vision Zero action planning process. So we wanted to give an update on the timeline. During the fall of 2024, the team conducted data analysis, policy research, and engaged stakeholders. This winter, staff are creating a high injury network analysis. After that, in the spring, we'll transition to beginning intervention and strategy development while also holding safe systems workshops. After that, the MPO will finalize its analysis and crash profiles along with its policy research, develop recommendations for strategies and projects. And perhaps the most relevant component to this presentation, the plan as required by SS4A, as required by the SS4A grant program. The plan will develop safety targets for the region given our analysis and findings. So the plan is for the MPO to have a draft Vision Zero plan with those targets ready for this coming fall. Next slide, please. So today's vote is on adopting MassDOT's roadway safety targets for the region so that the region can work toward achieving the targets discussed today. And while the Boston region typically achieves better outcomes than statewide averages on required rates of roadway safety metrics, the MPO still retains the ability to choose more ambitious targets. And most importantly, as the Vision Zero action plan progresses, MPO staff will return to the board to discuss regionally meaningful measures and targets in accordance with the Vision Zero planning work. Next slide, please. So thank you all for your attention today. MPO, the requested MPO action today is that MPO staff would like to request that the board vote to adopt MassDOT's calendar year 2025 roadway safety performance targets. Said targets will be reported in the MPO planning and certification documents, such as the 2026 to 30 tip. And I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sam. Very good presentation. Any questions for Sam? Eric Barassa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sam, really great presentation. Thank you for this overview. Can you, are you able to give a little more detail on the sort of the downward projections for all of these metrics? What is that based on? Is that just sort of like the historical downward trend, or is that, are we taking into account any of the highway safety plan, Vision Zero planning, any of those things? Does that also influence this downward trend number?
Yes, so Chris Clem, feel free to jump in afterwards. But yes, so it is a mix of, yes, downward trends that we expect, that especially as I stated earlier in the presentation, that after we sort of after numbers for 2021 and 2022 kind of fall off of these 5-year averages, we expect numbers to improve. But also we expect numbers to improve as a result of things like MPO regions and municipalities implementing their Vision Zero action plans and things like that.
Thank you.
Lynn Diggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and please forgive the background sound. We're getting an electric stove to replace our gas stove, and they're drilling now. Oops, I put myself on mute. A few questions, and these may be out of scope, and certainly unexpected. So if you don't have the answer, that's okay. And this is kind of a basic question, the first one. What constitutes a death that's directly associated with an accident? Like in what time span? Is it a week, a month, 6 months?
So I believe it's anyone whose injuries caught from a crash caused their death. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that has to be, like a victim was pronounced dead at the scene. It could be that they succumb to their injuries weeks or months or years later.
Okay, all right. So all right. So an accident that may have happened in 2023, may not have a death associated with it, or may not have the death associated with it until a year or so after that accident. So those numbers get updated, I would imagine, on an annual basis or something, right? Okay, all right. So the second question, and this is kind of once again kind of out of scope, but I'm curious. Do we ever look at like the ratio of injuries to deaths? Just us as an MPO. I know that the feds don't require that. Just to get some sense as to what might be leading, one or the other.
Yeah, that's a great question, Len. I've looked at that myself, not for in any formal way or for any sort of reporting requirements. But from, I guess, anecdotally from my research on this, is that it does seem that fatalities and serious injuries definitely follow the same general trend. But there might be years where, like you said, the ratio of fatalities to serious injuries fluctuates. Not sure exactly what specific causes for that could be, but that's a good point and something that perhaps we could look into in the future.
Yeah, because I was just thinking that maybe we're the deaths aren't happening, but it's just either luck, or it may be that there's some change. That means that people aren't dying, but they're still getting very seriously injured. And the last question, and this maybe pertains to the Vision Zero folks, a place where I can go to see like what are the contributing factors, to the accidents that lead to deaths or serious injuries. Like time of day, weather conditions, type of vehicle, things like that, to maybe get a sense of the injuries and the deaths?
Yeah, so we do have We do have our Vision Zero action page on the MPO website. I don't know if Ali Clayman wants to add anything more to that, but also within the state's impact dashboard, there is reporting on things like time of day and month of the year and daylight and factors like that in relation to fatalities and serious injuries, again on the state's impact dashboard.
Great, great. I thought that was around and I just didn't remember where it is. So thank you very much. And thanks for all the answers. That's it, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for Sam? Nayali?
So, my understanding is that per Federal Highway Administration guidance, these targets are more predictions than goals. And I did see a note about the MPO staff's work to develop both targets and goals that support achieving the Vision Zero as part of its Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program requirements in time for 2026. So having both could help make it clear that those are our targets and not actually our goals. So I'm curious if the MPO staff see value in pairing other performance targets with goals in the future, or whether the roadway safety targets are unique in that way. And I know that we're going to be going through the other targets, but I figured since today is a shorter meeting, I would ask the question today.
Hagan, you want to handle that one? I mean, Sam, feel free to handle that one, but that's more of a other goals, other measurements and metrics. Will we be attaching goals to them as opposed to trends?
Yeah, my plan is to defer to Rebecca Morgan, who's here today,
Okay.
who is representing our Vision Zero work. Rebecca, would you be able to speak up to that? I believe she is on the call.
Hi, Tegan. Yes, thanks. So as part of the Vision Zero action plan, we are working on target setting currently, and are going to be coming back to this board to explore kind of what the results of that analysis in fact is. So it's not just looking at an annual basis, but looking out multiple years. So we'll be looking at setting, what could be potential targets for fatalities and serious injuries by a certain date, and can we commit to a certain reduction? Like in 5 years, is it zero or is it a reduction by a certain percentage? And then at that point, I think was when we would be at a place where we could evaluate that and how that may impact, these predictions as opposed to targets. I don't know if that's getting at the question you asked. If I didn't quite get it, if you could.
Yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie. I think her question was more, we're clearly going to do this for safety. Are we going to do it for our other metrics? Like, I'll just pick one, single occupancy vehicle use, right? Are we going to actually do something, the MPO, not the state, is the MPO going to do something similar to what we are apparently now going to do on safety, and look at, here's your trend, but here's where the goal is, and here's our metric to measure, achievement of that goal. I think that, Natalie, is that the question?
Yes, that was exactly right.
Yeah, so I think it's more about, this is really interesting, and I think, everybody obviously supported the SS4A grant. We all support moving in this direction. Is the MPO going to move in this direction with its other metrics as opposed to just taking the statewide trend average?
So as I understand it, these are conversations that we've had in relation to our the next long range plan, and perhaps coming up with more, I guess, like enumerated targets that are attached to our long range goal areas. I don't want to say much more than that, Tegan and Rebecca, but yes, safety, while safety is just one goal area of the MPO, there are other areas where, yes, we are moving in this direction.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I concur with what Sam is saying. I think because we do have this SS4A grant, it's giving us an opportunity to move in a quicker fashion in this regard. But I think the idea would be we would want to look in a similar way for other targets, but would require a level of effort to kind of be able to identify what the appropriate targets would be. based on actions that this MPO, as well as municipalities and other partners, would have to take in order to reach those. So I think the answer in general is yes, but there's a lot of work that would have to be done in order to get to that point for discussing those kind of targets.
Right. Thank you. Nellie, did that get your question answered? All right, so Aaron?
Thank you. I think this may be a little consistent with what Nayali was asking, but just in light of, I appreciate the efforts in setting data-driven targets, but I'm concerned that having, a target or a goal that isn't zero for fatalities or serious injuries sort of runs counter to our own Vision Zero policy. So I'm wondering if there's a question of terminology here, or I'm just a little concerned about a vote on setting targets that is perhaps not in alignment with some of our own municipal targets.
Sam?
Yeah, so I should also state that the targets put before you today, which were adopted by MassDOT 6 months ago, the long-term sort of aspirational target for all of these is 0. While the targets we put before you for, while the targets we put before you for 2021 to 2025, right, and 23 through 27, more of like a medium-term target, are obviously not 0, and in many cases far from it. The long-term statewide goal, which this MPO has worked towards in the past, and other MPOs are as well, is 0.
Annette, do you have something to add?
Oops. Sorry, I'm having problems with my mouse. Yeah, I'd like to expand on Rebecca's response about looking at other performance area goals. That's something that we're talking about for as we're developing the next long-range transportation plan. And so, we have goal areas and objectives, and to date, we've not really quantified them. And so looking into what's the opportunity with this next long-range plan to actually put some metrics out there for performance. We'll be bringing that kind of discussion to the board, because obviously we can't do every single goal area in one plan update. So looking for what kind of data we have available and what the board is most interested in seeing goal areas set for targets.
Thank you, Annette. Any other questions from the MPO members at this time? Jen Rowe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is more of a in the weeds sort of question. So happy to follow up afterwards if you don't have the answer on the top of your head. But we in Boston have been going through an exercise as part of a Go Boston 2030 revision to also kind of set some metrics that we're going to be looking at and targets associated with them. And we were looking at different sources of data for estimating vehicle miles traveled in Boston. And so I was just curious if the VMT for these metrics were calculated using the Massachusetts Vehicle Census or MassDOT travel count data or some other source. And sort of on a broader level, would love to kind of coordinate longer term and certainly share what we're doing so it can be in alignment with the region too.
Sam, do you have a sense of the answer?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. The VMT numbers before you are were provided by the state, and I believe for the more recent years those are estimates. Chris Clem, feel free to tell me that I'm wrong. But I know that in the past we've had like discussions about like VMT levels in regards to roadways, usually around like roadway safety presentations, just because you simply probably see it in these charts. But internally we've sort of been moving more in a direction of, if we were ever to set a target around VMT, it would probably be more as part of a conversation about, say, greenhouse gas emissions and driving levels rather than safety targets.
Yeah, and so somebody on MPO staff should correct me here, but I presume that the MPO measurement of VMT, of fatalities per VMT, is based on not on the vehicle census, but on some modeled results and or like INRIX or one of those other, not to give INRIX a boost, one of those other tools that we have available. The vehicle census won't measure VMT in a specific area. It measures VMT produced by vehicles registered in that area. So the VMT for Boston in the mass vehicle census is only VMT produced by vehicles registered in Boston. So it doesn't count all of us who are driving into Boston and the VMT we're generating for you, I think. Any other questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion in a second to accept the MassDOT targets as the MPO targets for whatever the years we're talking about? Sam, what years are we talking about? Oh, 2025, I guess. Lynn Diggins.
Sounds like a motion I would make. So I'd like to make a motion to adopt the standards for fiscal years 23, 27. Yeah.
Thank you. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'll second that motion.
Motion having been made and seconded. Please call the roll.
On the roll, starting with David Moeller.
Yes.
Thank you. Aliris Lieto.
Lieto, yes.
John Romano.
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston.
Sandy Johnston, yes.
Tyler Terrassi.
Tyler Terrassi, yes.
Sarah Lee.
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, yes.
Dennis Witlakowski.
Dennis Wilikowski, yes.
Glenn Diggins.
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe.
Jen Rowe, yes.
Nayeli Rodriguez.
Nayeli Rodriguez, yes.
Eric Molinari.
Eric Molinari, yes.
David Kozis.
David Kozis, yes.
Aaron Shute.
Aaron Shute, I appreciate MPO's work on this, the need to set a target, also Mass DOT's. I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Tom Bent.
Yes.
Kristen Guichard.
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Dennis Giambetti.
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Nguyen.
Darlene Nguyen, yes.
Checking also Melissa Tentopoulos. Melissa present. Moving to Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Thank you. And that calls the roll, Mr. Chair. Motion carries.
Thank you, David. Excellent presentation. Generated a lot of interesting questions. Thanks a lot. Next item on the agenda is a TIP amendment. That would be federal fiscal year, I'm sorry, yeah, amendment number 9. Ethan LaPointe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everybody. I'm Ethan LaPointe. I'm here to present federal fiscal years 2025-29 TIP Amendment 9, where we'll be requesting a release of the amendment for a 21-day public comment period. On the next slide and the one after that, we can get into the details of what is in this amendment. There are changes to 2 program sections within federal fiscal year 2025, one section being earmarked discretionary funding and one being within the transit program. This includes 3 U.S. Department of Transportation Reconnected Communities pilot grant awards for the City of Revere, City of Boston, and one of the awards that the MBTA received under the program. It also includes the reprogramming of an earmark for the town of Wakefield. This earmark was previously amended on in the 2023 to 27 TIP. And there's also some funding adjustments for some Cape Ann Transportation Authority projects, the objective of which is to rebalance the allocation of their matching funding to ensure that all of their sources of local and state match are present in federal fiscal year 2025, rather than spreading it out across a couple of years. On the next slides, we'll get into that in a bit more detail, starting out with the earmarked discretionary line items. So these are the 3 Reconnecting Communities pilot grants. The first being for the City of Revere for their Walking to Wonderland project, which focuses on improving multimodal access along Route 1A, Route 60, and also connectivity to both the MBTA commuter rail and also MBTA Blue Line, especially with connections to Revere High School. This is a $400,000 grant award with $100,000 of matching funding under the Reconnecting Communities pilot. Similarly, this time for the MBTA, this is the JFK UMass Station redesign and replacement project, also a planning and design project for $2 million of planning and design work with $500,000 of match to conduct early activities towards a reconstruction of JFK UMass Station. And the third award for this was for the city of Boston for centering the rise, connecting people to a healthy, vibrant Mattapan Square. This is a $2 million grant award, which also has a $2 million match applied to it. This, similar to the Walking to Wonderland project, focuses on multimodal safety and connectivity in the Mattapan Square element, and also improving access to transit, commensurate with other improvements to resilient design. On the next slide, we'll then get into the one earmark split across two different project phases for the design and construction of the Wakefield Broadway commuter rail crossing. Earlier in the presentation, I mentioned that this earmark, which is a total $1.5 million line item between the earmark and its matching funding, was previously amended in the fiscal 23-27 tip. That was only for construction funding. Here, the town is proposing a split of the earmark to allocate $241,200 to support design activities for this improvement, and the remaining $1,258,000 to conduct construction for the improvement. The design and the construction phases are being proposed for inclusion in the federal fiscal year's 25-29 tip as two separate line items against the same earmark. And moving lastly into the 2025 transit program on the next slide, these three projects that are presented here are categorized because they all relate to one another. The first project is the Cape Ann Transportation Authority's purchases of small and miscellaneous capital, and the second is an acquisition of shop equipment and small capital. The small capital line, the first one, it has proposed for a budget reduction of $80,000, whereas the shop equipment small capital line that is second has a budget reduction proposed of $100,000. The reason being is that the state matching funds that are present on each of these line items, $800,000 for the first, $70,000 for the second, are proposed for being redirected to support a revenue vehicle replacement acquisition project for the Cape Ann Transportation Authority in federal fiscal year 2025. Worth noting, I said $100,000 on that second line item. There's $70,000 of that that's RTA capital funding. The remaining $30,000 is Section 5307 federal funds, which is why this is not necessarily a net zero change between these three line items. As I mentioned at the start of the presentation, the objective here is to ensure that the Cape Ann Transportation Authority could have all of the matching funding to support this revenue vehicle replacement in federal fiscal year 25, rather than spreading it out across multiple federal fiscal years. Moving on to the next slide, we have a similar sort of change for two other Cape Ann Transportation Authority projects. The first project is the repaving of their administration and operations facility parking lot, and the second line item is the rehabilitation and renovation of that facility. This action is proposed to functionally not only consolidate the repaving of that parking lot into the broader rehab and renovation of the facility, but to also shift $180,000 of the overall $500,000 project into this other renovation line item. The $500,000 repave admin ops facility parking lot project is proposed for removal, not only to shift that funding over towards the other line item, but also because it's part of a larger effort under a separate line item that the MPO has funded with transit transformation funding in federal fiscal year 2025. So the scope of work here, regardless of the money that is being moved around and when things are going to be executed, is functionally the same. It is just ensuring that funding is available, especially the local matching funds, in the line items that need it at the time that requires it. So if we can move on to the next slide. As part of today's requested action, MPO staff are requesting that the board votes to release Amendment 9 for a 21-day public comment period, which will begin tomorrow, Friday, February 7th, and conclude on February 28th at 5 p.m. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ethan. Questions for Ethan? Gene Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quickly wanted to note that these are the same reconnecting community pilot grants, that grouping of three that that Ethan spoke to, that we announced at our most recent board meeting. And so I wanted to thank MPO staff and MassDOT for kind of preparing the work for this amendment so quickly. Happy to take any questions about Boston's project. But otherwise, that's it.
Thank you, Jen. Any questions? Any other questions for Ethan or Jen? Seeing none, can I get a motion to release this tip amendment for a 21-day public process? Please state your name when making the motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'll make the motion to release this tip amendment for the public comment period.
Thank you. Jen Rowe.
Second that motion.
Thank you. Motion having made and seconded, please call the roll.
David Muller,
Yes.
Liris Lieto,
Luis Lyoto, yes.
John Romano,
John Romano, yes.
Sandy Johnston,
Sandy Johnson, yes.
Tyler Terrassi,
Tyler Terrassi, yes.
Sarah Lee,
Sarah Lee, yes.
Eric Barassa,
Eric Barassa, yes.
Hannah Switlikowski,
Hannah Swilakowski, yes.
Len Diggins,
Diggins, yes.
Jen Rowe,
Jen Rowe, yes.
Nayeli Rodriguez,
Nayeli Rodriguez, yes.
Eric Molinari,
Eric Molinari, yes.
David Kozes,
David Kozis, yes.
Aaron Shute,
Aaron Shute, yes.
Tom Bent,
Tom Benton, yes.
Kristen Guichard,
Kristen Guichard, yes.
Dennis Giambetti,
Dennis Giambetti, yes.
Darlene Wynn,
Darlene Wynn, yes.
Tom O'Rourke.
Tom O'Rourke, yes.
Thank you, and that motion carries, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other business to come before the MPO at this time? Any member items? Taking, when's our next meeting? Are we meeting in 2 weeks?
Yes, in 2 weeks on February 20th, excuse me.
And that's a virtual, right?
That will be virtual, but it will be a highly intensive meeting.
Good. Thanks for the warning. Heads up.
Lots of information.
Can I get a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting? Please state your name and for the record, we're making a motion. Eric Barassa.
Eric Barassa, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Tom Bent.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Motion have been made and seconded. Any objections? Without objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a great 2 weeks, I guess.